Okay, we are now ready for our Learning Across the District, which is in its second year now. It was an overwhelming success last year and entertaining, and we are certain that we will not be let down this year. So I'm going to turn that program over to the students.
Good evening. We are here to discuss instructional coaches who play an integral role in our elementary schools. While the main goal for the coaches is to improve teachers' instructional practices and to increase student learning, their responsibilities include so much more. We would like to take a few minutes to highlight some of these responsibilities with the help of our students.
Many teachers acquire data on their students. Instructional coaches help us to analyze this data and use information from the data in order to plan for instruction and move students along.
The coach meets with my teacher and they look at things like this. This helps them to plan groups and lessons so that I can move up my reading levels.
Instructional coaches help to implement new teaching practices and many new programs in our school. Some of these programs are
Phonations to help students with their phonics skills.
Use for science so that we can become better investigators and provide good claims, evidence, and reasoning.
And the new everyday math program. Do you know what it means to subitize?
They plan with teachers and come in to model lessons in order to help us refine our teaching practices.
It's cool when we have Mrs. Cook come in and teach with my teacher. We get double the help.
In addition, they help us write grants to get new things for our schools.
Wow, look at these math readers that kindergarten, first, and second graders got. They're gonna love these.
I'm glad we got this new PA system. Now we can hear Mr. Decker much better when he dismisses us from the multipurpose room and when he makes important announcements.
These level literacy intervention books have been helpful to a lot of students during guided reading.
They help plan meetings and professional development for the staff.
I know the teachers learn new strategies because they always share what they learn at meetings with us to make learning more exciting, like this and this.
We have used today's meet for book clubs, and we even used it in music class.
Now we just finished our nonfiction unit. Now Mrs. Cook is helping my teacher gather resources for the upcoming nonfiction unit. I am so excited.
They help implement the new technology that is in our schools, like Chromebooks, iPads, Google Docs, and Elmos.
Yes, I can share a Google Doc with my teacher and she can make comments on my writing so that I don't have to wait to meet with her. How cool is that?
As you can see, an instructional coach's job is different every day, depending on the needs of the staff and the students. It's an incredible feeling knowing that whenever the teachers need help analyzing data, determining a student's needs or the classes, delivering a lesson or gathering resources, we always have a knowledgeable person we can confer with and depend on. Thank you.
Is there any questions or discussion on that? They were awfully cute.
Yeah.
And awfully enthusiastic.
Yes, love that. Thank you. Should we take a break? Our next presentation is on the Student Services Report. I think we're going to have Danielle Blaylock talk to us on that.
I have to say, that's a pretty tough act to follow. I'm going to do my best. Can we start it from the beginning? Miss Warren? Mrs. Warren, could you start it from the beginning?
I think it's important that they do it.
No, from the beginning. There we go. That's okay. Okay, now we're ready. So I want to start by taking the opportunity to thank Dr. Valesky, Dr. Cohen, and the board for allowing me to come back each year to take the opportunity to share what the Student Services Department does throughout the year. Often in education, it becomes natural to focus on academic achievement and student performance and data. However, it's important to remember that as a district and as a community, we value educating the whole child. So that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. So I want to start by showing you this visual about effective school counseling. It's very similar to an iceberg. In order to have effective school counseling, there's a lot of things that are going on underneath the surface that people don't often see. Very often this is because this work is done in a private session. It's done confidentially between the counselor and the parent, the counselor and the student, and between the counselor and the teacher to make a student successful. So what people see on a daily basis can't really be advertised, and that's the little bit that you kind of see at the top. But I'd like to talk a little bit about some of that work that we're doing that's underneath the surface. Just as a review, we have one student assistant at every elementary school, and at the secondary level, we have a team of school counselors that work in conjunction with the 2 student assistant specialists at each school. To go into the role of the work that the student assistant specialists do at our schools, they co-chair the Intervention and Referral Services Committee with the building administrator. The purpose of this committee is to help teachers develop interventions when students are struggling in their classroom. This could be an academic struggle, it could be a behavioral struggle or an emotional struggle. The team gets together and develops an action plan that can help support the teacher and the student in the classroom. They make child study team referrals. They co-chair the Section 504 committee. This year we had our 504s went up slightly, especially at the high school. We saw an increase of students that required services for ADD and ADHD, some health disorders, some mental health disorders such as anxiety and depression, students struggling with Crohn's disease and other autoimmune diseases. The other schools maintained their numbers. They serve as our homeless liaisons, and they provide individual and group counseling. They also serve as our anti-bullying specialists in our schools, which means they do the investigation, they write the reports, and they provide supportive counseling for both the said victim as well as for the bully. They serve a vital role on our safety committees, conduct suicide assessments, make DCP and P referrals, follow up on drug screens, and provide crisis counseling. It should be noted that our suicide assessments went up this year significantly. I think this is due to a variety of factors. The first being we are getting better at identifying students that need to be evaluated. In addition, we have our students being trained to monitor, especially things like social media, where students sometimes feel more comfortable sharing about struggles that are going on. They refer them appropriately, and we can screen them in our schools. Now we're going to move on to the role of the school counselors. They provide individual as well as group counseling. They focus on academic, college, and career. They utilize Naviance in the college process. They also provide that group counseling in conjunction with the student assistance specialists. They do large group classroom lessons, including Naviance, cyberbullying, anti-bullying, things of that nature. They assist with standardized test organization, serve as case coordinators for INRS at the secondary level, and help monitor attendance plans. Some of the other programs and initiatives you can see that go on during the year are vast. Respect Week, Positive Behavior Supports in Schools, which is at Irwin School, Hammersholt, and Churchill. They do parent programming, Violence Prevention Week activities, which also takes place in October. They work on the mentor programs, as well as our Friends of Rachel assemblies, which we've focused on over the past few years, bringing our high school students down to the elementary buildings to talk about inclusion versus exclusion behavior, which is very important at the elementary level. Some of the things that we focused on in terms of staff development this year were training for our school safety teams as well as investigating HIBs. We provided this training not only for the safety teams themselves, but also for our building administration. We worked on revising and updating our intervention and referral packet as well as our 504 packet. We had additional Naviance training, and we revised and retrained our staff on the risk assessment model. Now on to some other programming and activities that have gone on in our schools. Again, one area that we want to focus on is cyber safety for all students. This is at Lawrencebrook Elementary School. We need to focus on this from the younger age all the way through to grade 12. It's essential. Moving on to some of our Respect Week activities. Our theme from this past year was What I Am, which is based off of a song by the Black Eyed Peas. The students at Hammersholt were asked to decorate a colored card displaying their own individual characteristics, what makes them special. We brought this together into a mural because that's what makes our school communities more special, is our own individual differences that bring us together and unite us. Here's some additional PBSIS activities that took place throughout the year. At the high school, we had another successful Day of Silence, which is a national day of action in which students across the country vowed to take a form of silence to call attention to the silencing effects of anti-LGBT bullying and harassment in our schools. We had over 70 staff participate this past year. We also had our first official Day of Silence at Churchill. Students themselves had expressed the need to bring this program that we had been doing at the high school down to the Churchill level. So with the support of Mr. Suter, we were able to make this a very powerful day there as well. One of our students' favorite days is to come back and speak to the seniors about their experiences at college and the application process. Of course, we love to have them back and hear about their experiences as a freshman in college and post-graduation success. Another thing we recognized this year in a national campaign was No One Eats Alone Lunch Day. Again, one of our overarching themes is inclusion versus exclusion. This was recognized at the high school, as well as at Hammersholt, where it was called Mix It Up Lunch Day. The counselors made new table groupings, and students were provided with, I can show you, questions to ask their new friends at their tables. I must ask you a question. Made it a little bit more comfortable for those 6th and 7th graders who, of course, are a little hesitant to make new friends, but it was really fun and well received by all. One of the things that I want to talk about that I'm most proud of and excited about from this past year was Sources of Strength. We were able to obtain the Turning the Tides grant, which came about after Hurricane Sandy. This provided the district with $25,000 worth of free training for Churchill and the high school to bring this national model peer leadership program to Churchill and the high school. It is designed to work as a positive support system to build a positive school climate, decrease bullying, decrease substance abuse, decrease issues of mental health, and decrease school violence. So how does it work? The program recruits groups of peer leaders and adults to work together to have positive campaigns throughout the building. It uses the peer leaders as connectors to help those students, those outliers that may be struggling with a stressful event, and connect them to a positive adult in the building who can help them to be successful. It does not use a shock, trauma, sad approach, but rather it teaches students resiliency and how to reach out to those positive people in their lives. These are the 8 wheels on the Sources of Strength that we focus on. Here's our training at the high school. We were able to train 50 students at both Churchill as well as the high school and 11 staff members. In addition to the training that we received through the grant, myself as well as 3 other counselors in the district were able to be trained on a national level. This way we will be able to continue to grow the program internally. This is an example of one of the Sources of Strength positive messaging campaigns. Students at the high school were asked to identify a staff member that they've been able to turn to when they had a difficult situation. Not just a counselor, but anyone in the building who they were able to go to We have custodians on there, we have the school resource officer, we even have Dr. Vanella on there. So students were able to identify those people so that others know who they can go to. Research shows that students that stay connected to school and feel that they have a positive adult in their life will have better attendance, perform better academically, make positive choices when it comes to friends as well as healthy activities. They'll feel connected to the school community, and they'll be more inclined to say no to drugs and alcohol and other risky behaviors. Another great addition that we brought in this year was a proactive approach to dealing with the risks of drug and alcohol. I serve on the Municipal Alliance for Middlesex County, Prevention of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, along with Patrolman Hoover, who's, you saw him earlier in the presentation. He's our community police officer. And we are able to look at trends and issues that go on in the town as well as in Middlesex County. We were able to get funding to bring young people in recovery, former students, East Brunswick, Old Bridge, New Brunswick, to come into our health classes and talk to students about the dangers and things that they experienced related to drug and alcohol abuse. Okay, so now that we talked about some of where we've been, I'd like to talk about where we're going, because we're already on the move for next year. Things that we're looking to do. At the elementary level, we're looking to expand our mentor program in all of our schools. We're looking to incorporate the social cognitive thinking curriculum, which is Superflex, in grades K through 2, and continue to improve our transitioning program for incoming new students. At the secondary level, we're looking to continue to develop our drug and alcohol program, continue to focus on our school safety teams and additional HIB training for our staff, continue to expand sources of strength in our peer leadership programs, continue to expand connections with our high school students and our elementary schools, continuing those Friends of Rachel assemblies that we bring down to the elementary schools, as well as continue our Naviance training and continue our transitional programming for incoming students. So, I'm going to end tonight with a highlight. Mrs. Warren's going to pull it up, a video of some of the key activities that were done at Hammersholt Middle School this year, where I think you'll be able to see and sense the energy of the positive climate that the Student Services Committee brings to our schools.
Thank you. I'm just going to, I'm recognizing the time, and we have a lot of little kids here tonight. What I'd like to do is take about a 3-minute break, if that's okay.
Sure.
And for those folks who want to get their kids home, I know it's a school night. I also want to thank those kids that were getting awards tonight who probably still have homework to do, but giving out these awards is an honor for us. It's an honor for you, and we are proud, and that's why we want to share that with the community. So I'm thankful that you took the time out to come here to get those awards. But in lieu of the time, we'll take about a 3-minute break, and then we'll come to the questions.
Sure.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Okay, we're back in session, and we're going to continue with questions on the Student Services Report. Mrs. Shaw?
I noticed that I think it was only 3 of the schools have the Positive Behavior Supports Program. What's the criteria for determining which schools will have that program?
That's actually a grant program that's funded by the state, and those 3 schools happened to apply for that grant program going back a few years ago, and it's really grown and taken off. There are aspects of positive behavior supports in schools that we bring to all of the schools, but the actual grant programming was funded and given to those 3 specific schools.
Do you think that program shares a lot with the mentor programs?
Absolutely. They all are kind of interconnected. They focus on things such as building a positive community in your schools, setting clear expectations and recognizing positive activity and following those expectations, as well as linking students with positive adult role models in their life. So we're doing that through other programs in the other schools.
Okay. And you had mentioned that the Sources of Strength program was one that you are very proud of.
Very proud of.
And I have to mention that when you brought a presentation to the Student Services Committee, I guess that was last spring.
Right.
I have to tell you that I felt that it was the highlight of the entire year in regards to our programming. I wondered if you could just share just a few words on how the students are chosen to receive the Sources of Strength training. Because when you made the presentation to our committee, I was just very impressed with what I think you're about to say.
Okay, thank you. So the way that the students are chosen is, I think historically, when I think back to a peer leadership program, you think about those students who maybe are the top achieving students in the class, you know, maybe the brightest and the smartest and things like that. And that's not what this peer leadership program looks to do. What it looks to do is have the students, as well as the teachers in the building, identify the different pockets, the different groups of students that hang out together, that socially relate to one another, and then identify within those groups who are the leaders. Who is the leader of the marching band? Who is the leader within the football team? Who is the leader within the drama department? Hitting on all of those different social groups that we have in our schools and bringing that diverse group together. Once we brought that initial first group together, part of the training is having the students look around and identify and recognize you're not here with your friends. You're here as an individual representing a group. Who are we missing? What groups do we need to reach out to make sure that the entire school body and school community is represented and has a leader among them that can help with these resources? And
do you think that you got 100% participation from those students that were recommended for the training? Or were some kids reticent about getting involved?
There was a few students that felt that there was too much on their plate, whether it be academics, sports, things like that, and chose not to participate in the program, and that's absolutely okay. And then we tried to find someone else to replace that student among the group that they socialize with.
And now that the training has been conducted, we've dissipated the grant money.
Correct.
Do you see any barriers to us continuing with this program as time goes on?
The benefit of getting this particular grant was that it came with national training. So myself, as well as 3 other counselors, 2 counselors and a health teacher actually, went and received the national training. So we now are certified to continue the training so we can maintain the program within our schools. So we have that foundational group that we started last year. Then this year we will look to get more students involved, get more staff involved. One of the things that they talked about in the training is you want to start with a manageable group and you want to grow the program over years. And 5 years, 7 years down the road, hopefully we will have an infiltrated peer leadership program in both of those schools.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Becker.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Could you just elaborate a bit on this Superflex curriculum?
Sure.
I think it was K-2.
K-2. So the Superflex curriculum is something that has been used in different pockets of our school district and community. It's been used extensively at Central School. It's been used extensively with our special education population. One of the things that it does is help students to understand their own behavior as well as other behavior. It's a superhero called Glass Man, and he takes on different characters that invade his brain, such as Blurt Out Blue, who often comes into class and forces you to blurt out answers in the classroom, or Rock Brain, who gets into your head and gets you stuck on a certain topic and it's hard for you to move on, or Space Invader, who sometimes gets too close to you and gets into your physical space. So it uses these fun characters that the students can relate to teach social skills, appropriate social norms, and how to interact and how to combat these issues when you have them. We piloted it in our kindergarten classes last year, and now we're looking to bring it to all the elementary schools K-2.
You had mentioned about bringing the Day of Silence to Churchill.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that specific activity, but any thoughts on bringing tolerance for the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender population, even to the lower grades like Hammersholt?
We did pilot a program at Hammersholt this year, but we took a little bit of a different approach. We didn't, the group that runs at the high school, GASP, Gay and Straight Peers, they have 2 different groups that run at the high school. One is a support group and one is more of an advocacy group. We are looking to bring that down to Churchill as well as at Hammersholt. What we did at Hammersholt was we did it by grade, because developmentally 6th graders are different than 7th graders and how they relate to things are also different, and we want to make sure that we're sensitive and that we're also developmentally appropriate. So for the 6th grade group, for both grades, it was called SAVE. Students safe. Students advocating for everyone was what we called it. And a teacher at both levels piloted with one of the school counselors, and it was a group that was held after school, and it was really just for advocating for students with diverse backgrounds, whatever that meant. So sometimes the topics may have included gay, lesbian, straight types of topics, but it didn't focus solely on that. It was a little bit broader.
I would just think that at that age in particular, kids who are beginning to question things about their own identity may not really know where to go, who to turn to, and the awareness of it being embarrassing or humiliating to be different at that age is very, very strong. I mean, in any way.
Sure.
So that's why I was wondering if we really were going to focus starting even younger.
Right. There is much more of an awareness, and there's also much more of a social acceptance. So more and more students are coming out and identifying and disclosing to teachers as well as counseling staff that they are struggling with those types of issues and how can they get the support. So of course we are responsive to what we're seeing with the students and in the community, and we will continue to expand that as we see the need.
Good. One more question. When I first read the statistic that there were 31 suicide assessments identified at the elementary level compared to 8 the previous year, my question was a big why. And you answered that when you were talking about it. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, though. It's not necessarily that there were only 8 the previous year. There could have been a lot more. We just hadn't identified them. And this last year, we did identify 31. So we're getting, it's not, there could be the same amount every year. There could be even more.
Correct.
We're just getting better at identifying them, not them necessarily increasing.
Right, and the students identifying other students that they're concerned about, which is also a positive thing. At the elementary level, again, developmentally, sometimes students say things out of frustration. So it may be an opportunity for us to sit with the student and discuss, why are you feeling frustrated? Why did you say that? Why did you indicate that maybe, you know, you want to hurt yourself in some way? But there's really no actual plan or intent or suicide ideation. At the secondary level, I believe it was 110 risk assessments that were done, and 64 of those students were sent out for further evaluation. There is an increase nationwide of teenagers that are being diagnosed with anxiety disorders, depression disorders, you know, things of that nature. But luckily, you know, I think luckily we are catching all of those kids. I'd rather do more risk assessments and err on the side of caution and send out those ones that we need to connect to outside resources and mental health facilities.
Absolutely.
We want to catch them.
Are you seeing any kind of, when you say nationwide it's increasing, do you feel it's also because of the accessibility of cyberbullying and?
Yeah, I think that kids spend less time communicating face-to-face than they used to 5-10 years ago. There's a lot more that goes on social media, and kids are more comfortable to say perhaps how they're feeling on social media as opposed to, you know, face-to-face. So the benefit of that is that we do have kids then that are telling us about it and reporting it, so we can get them the help. I don't know that there's necessarily more than there was years ago. I think we just know we're better educated, and we know more, and more is coming to our attention.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Can I just follow up on that a little bit, Dr. Cohen?
Sure.
It mentions in your report that 31 risk assessments for suicide were completed at the elementary level, with 2 being sent out. So does that imply that the 31 that were conducted, it was determined that they really were not at risk?
Correct. They did not have an active, realistic plan that matched a suicidal ideation. However, whenever we do a risk assessment, even if we're not sending the student out, we're still going to call the parent, involve the parent, talk about what the concern was, why was this brought to our attention, what was said by the student. This way it can be addressed, whatever the student is struggling with.
And the same thing at the high school level as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I just have 2 hopefully quick questions. And on the similar topic, the sharp rise in child abuse and neglect cases that we had this year, are those also due to better detection? Is it just repeated incidences with the same person, or were they all different? Because it was a sharp increase.
Yes, there was. It was almost double. And I'm going to say it's both. We had more students that were being identified by teaching staff or by parents as being of concern that they could be in harm's way. But we also had a number of families in town that are already hooked up with DCP&P services and social services. And when you have a family that's hooked up with those services, there becomes a close connection between the school community and the outside resources that family is receiving. They ask us to stay in close communication with them. So if we have an additional concern, we then would place another call of concern to the agency to let them know. So I think it's both.
Okay. And then the last thing is, I know, and I'm just curious in our own community, but there's been an extraordinarily sharp rise in the use of heroin. The police have been finding that. They've been having to use Narcan, which is the reversing agent, more frequently than they ever have. There's a huge base of operation for heroin in Newark, and supposedly a operation out of Sayreville, which is where a lot of that is coming from. And I'm curious whether or not we're seeing any of that, because it's extremely cheap and an easy drug to get access to. And I know that it's on the rise in a lot of our neighboring communities. Are we seeing that here?
Fortunately, we have not seen it as much as a presence within our school district. Our number of positive drug screens stayed the same this year as compared to last. However, we are very cognizant of paying attention to it. As I had said earlier in the report, I sit on the Municipal Alliance for the Prevention of Drug and Alcohol Abuse for Middlesex County. Patrolman Hoover sits on that committee as well. So he's very in tune with what is going on in our very own community in terms of, drug and alcohol abuse. And we talk about things that perhaps I need to be bringing back to both my student assistant specialists as well as my health teachers in terms of proactively addressing that in the classroom. That was part of the reason why we brought in young people in recovery to have small group sessions in the classrooms. Dr. Vanella allowed us to go and talk to some of his students at the high school the year prior to find out how would the students want this information delivered. Do they like it in a full assembly where the whole community comes together, or small groups? And the students themselves identified small group sessions so that they can have more intimate personal conversations, and then have the student assistant specialists available afterwards for any follow-up concerns or questions or disclosures that might need to happen.
And our nurses are capable of giving that here, Narcan?
No, our nurses do not.
They're not, so we'd have to
We
call
would
the
have to
police?
call the police department.
Okay. Mr. McAvoy.
Which brings me back to young people in recovery. Was that a grant?
It's money that's given to the Municipal Alliance through the state. Each county has a municipal alliance for the prevention of drug and alcohol abuse. I'm not sure if it's considered to be a grant, but each year we write a plan as a committee where we propose programming to come into our schools, our community, the senior center, things like that.
And that was open to just the high school students?
We brought that program into 8th, 9th, and 11th grade classes, and we brought in a different program to 6th and 7th grade classes. 10th grade does driver's education for health, so we did not bring that in there, but we did bring in programming about safe driving, not texting, things like that.
And when you say we, does that mean that you are making the choice regarding who is speaking to our children?
Myself, in conjunction with the Municipal Alliance, there's a school counselor that sits on that committee. There's students from the high school that sit on that committee, members of NCADD, and someone from the township.
How often did you meet?
8 times per year.
8 times. And that was with regard to the students at the high school or in 8th grade. It was their choice to get involved. You did not identify the students who needed recovery.
No, we didn't identify any students that needed recovery
Right.
in terms
So
of
they-
bringing them
they-
in. It was just a program of speakers that
Right.
talked to
And so
drug
any
and alcohol
high
prevention.
school kid could go to one of these sessions.
Sure.
Did you find that there was an end result to this?
We did have some students that came out and self-disclosed either concerns about themselves, others, or family members that were struggling with addiction.
And did the 8 sessions encompass everything from the 11th grade to the 8th grade to the 6th grade?
The 8 times that we meet per year, it's not just about the school district. It's about the community as a whole and doing programming for the community as a whole, not just the schools. The school is just a part of where the funding and programming comes
Would you
from.
continue the program?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? That was I know that took a lot of time, but I think it's an important topic, and I just thought that for the parents that did stay and those that are going to be watching, that they should understand what the vast amount of support services, instructional coaches, and guidance we have here in the district that they may not be aware of. And I thought that was important. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Daniel.
The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of providing an opportunity to the public to express themselves on school-related matters of concern to the residents of East Brunswick. To allow for a fair and orderly public comment period in accordance with Board Policy 167, individual comments are limited to 5 minutes. Members of the public are reminded that this is a public televised meeting of the Board of Education, and to protect the privacy of all students and staff, concerns regarding individual students and staff members should generally be addressed by first meeting with the appropriate administrative staff. I see we have 2 young ladies that would like to address the board, so please do.
I'm just going to do a brief introduction. My name's Laurel Cooper. I live at 23 Bosco Drive, and I am a Girl Scout troop leader here in East Brunswick for Troop 80929. And the girls have been working on a project, and the finish of the project is coming and doing a short presentation for you tonight. You stand and they can all see you.
Hi, I'm Marissa Rogers, and I live at 25 Costco Court. And I'm Annalise Simons, and I live at 23 Bosco Drive. Hello there. We're Junior Girl Scouts in Troop 80929, earning our Get Moving Journey Award. This is an award that is all about energy, learning about and saving energy, and getting active. We have come to you with our findings of our energy audit in our meeting classroom, the bathrooms, and in my everyday school life because I was a student at Frost. We did an energy audit at Frost School. The purpose of this energy audit was to come to the Board of Education to request improvements on the issues that we found. The 3 rooms we surveyed were the classroom we went in, which was classroom 22, the bathrooms, and the cafeteria, which I observed during school lunchtime. Some of our findings were, in the bathroom we saw that one of the bathroom's glass brick windows was broken, which lets in more cold in the winter and lets out the air conditioning in the summer, so the teachers have to turn up the thermostats, and that wastes energy and wastes money as well. Also, in both bathrooms, the toilet paper, it's very, very thin, so you have to use more of it, much more of it. And that's not eco-friendly because you're using more than you would need to. So in the classroom that we surveyed, there was a fan, and the classroom had air conditioning. But even if the classrooms in the schools have air conditioning, they still use fans because the teachers, a lot of times they can't change the temperature of the air conditioning, so they have to use the fans to keep the room temperature ideal. In the cafeteria, I noticed that there were styrofoam trays, which are not decomposable, and they're very harmful to the environment. Also, styrofoam trays, when you're carrying something, if it's too heavy, the middle can break and your food can spill all over. Paper trays don't break. They're more sturdy. The cafeteria also had fluorescent lighting. That kind of lighting burns out more easily than LEDs, and it wastes more energy. So also, again, more cost because you have to replace it more often and you're wasting more energy. Also, throughout the whole school, we found that there was an old thermostat, which was less energy efficient. And it also has central heating, which in the winter, it has to work overtime because it's older. It's from when the school was first built, and it's slower. So that's also wasting more energy and more money, which we could be saving. Thank you for hearing our findings from our energy audit of Frost Elementary School. We hope that you will converse.
Those are outside consultants.
Yeah, we're about to offer you a job.
We have a consultant for that, though. Are we paying them money?
No. Wonderful.
That was a really great job, ladies.
Yeah, both girls were heavily involved in this. Marissa did create the poster here, and Annalise and she wrote this together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome job.